Hey folks, welcome to Black Gumbo. Let's make a lasagna garden. So let me first explain the concept of a lasagna garden. A lasagna garden is simply a way to compost in place by layering different materials, different organic materials that will slowly compost down. Just like you would build a lasagna with the pasta, then the sauce, then the cheese, then you repeat. So a lasagna gardening is just that. You're layering different organic materials, and it's one of the easiest ways to begin a garden. You don't need to dig the soil underneath. You can begin right on top of your lawn. You don't need to dig down or anything like that. This method composts down on top of your soil, and gradually it improves the soil underneath. If you've got hard clay and you want to garden on top of that, you can just layer stuff up and let it compost over time, and it will help to amend that clay. And all the weeds and the roots and the grass that you've built on top of will become organic material that composts in place. So you just lay it right on top. What you want to do is go in and identify if you've got any persistent weeds. Like in my area, the persistent weed's going to be nutgrass and nutsedge, and if you've got anything like that, there's an ivy that comes up here and is very persistent. You want to try to remove that. Canna lilies, they have tubers underground, and those bulb-like tubers will come up. So I chopped up my ground a bit to try to head that off where those lilies were. But yeah, just lay cardboard as a weed block. You can use newspaper, but I think cardboard works better. Lay down your cardboard where you want your garden to be, water it down real good, and then all you have to do is start stacking different materials. It's best to alternate greens and browns, nitrogens and carbons, just like you do in your compost pile. But if all you have is just a bunch of pine needles and some leaves, go for it. It'll take longer, but it'll break down over time. The good thing about a lasagna garden is you can plant in it right away with many different kinds of plants. Some plants don't do well. Tomatoes are one of the plants that actually do pretty well in compost, so that's what I'm going to plant in mine. So that's the idea with a lasagna garden. It's a very easy way to start a brand new bed that will, over the years, be some of the best soil you've ever had. And I'm going to do that today, so let's now go out and get to work. Okay, so I've got this real trashy area on the side of my house, the south side, where my compost bins are. My future rain catchment system barrels are just sitting around. And I've got a lot of junk back here, a lot of bags of leaves that I use for leaf mold and compost, but I haven't really made the best use of this brick wall back here. It's facing south, it gets a lot of sun all the time. I can do what's called pushing the zone if I wanted to, because that brick wall absorbs heat and retains it. So this zone 9A can be pushed a little, maybe to zone 9B, because I'm right on the border, maybe even to zone 10A, and I can grow tropical things back here. But I'm gonna dig up my canna lilies. I've got a bunch of them back here. I'm gonna leave a little patch there, but because I like them. But most of them are coming out, and I'm gonna use those for biomass, for layering my lasagna garden system. But I got a lot of cleanup to do, so we're gonna get to work on that today. Another challenge I have back here is my gas meter is right there, and there's a tree growing right up next to the gas line, and that shrub has been trouble for me for years. It's been as tall as my daughter's window, and I've cut it back several times, so I'm going to have to keep cutting that back. But I don't want my garden right up against my gas meter, so it's going to be a little oddly shaped, and that's okay. This is pretty good soil down here. Those lilies have been growing here. I've grown sunflowers here, and I think we should be fine gardening right here. So let's get that tree out. I didn't film the carnage, but I'm going to just use this plot. It's maybe a 4x6 bed I can put in here. And this is all pretty good soil. I'm going to build just a cheap 2x4 border out of scrap wood. And it's not supposed to be a pretty border. It's just to define the space. Some of the stuff's going to go out from under the bottom. Some of it might go over the top. But I want to define space. And the reason, I need to be able to get back here with my weed trimmer, and I can trim right up against those boards. And I need to be able to have a defined boundary here, because this walkway here has to be lawnmower size. This is in and out from my lawnmower here, so I can bring this out to about right there. What we're doing now is I've loosened the soil You don't have to do this for a lasagna garden. You could just put right on top of the native ground. But what I had to do, there was a lot of rocks and debris in here that's accumulated over the years, and I wanted to try to find the bigger chunks and get them out. And so Sam's just going and flattening out some of those chunks so that when we lay our cardboard on here, you know, it's not all lumpy. It doesn't have a bunch of air gaps underneath. You can see this is just a 2x4 border. It's not intended to, you know, hold the garden in or be a raised bed border. We're gardening here in the ground. This is just to keep things tidy.
Oh, we're trying to get flat?
Well, we're trying to break up, yeah, get flat and break up the chunks. All the way to the edge. So you want to cover up gaps if you can?
Yeah. Like that.
Okay.
All the way.
What about here? You think we can cover this up? Or why don't you hop off of that one?
The dog goes crazy with the hose.
Just over here too. Alright, that ought to do. Okay, so we've put down some compostable materials. We put down some leaves on top of our cardboard. We put down some of this greenery to provide nitrogen. And now I'm going to cover this in some old wood chip mulch that I've got to weigh it down. And we're going to just let that start to decompose for a while. Holy moly, it's hot out here. I have some peat moss that I'm going to put over the top of this just to put a little more layer on there, and that peat moss will help this whole process. I've got it, I might as well use it to help weigh everything down. Decomposition will begin right away, composting will begin right away. The worms will love that cardboard, they'll come up and start eating that and all those leaves. Yeah, this is a good system. Wow, that was a lot of work, and it's about 95% humidity today. It's pretty hot, pretty toasty for spring. We're going to get a little cool down this week, but not much. So now's the time to grow stuff. Hey, I have grown Roma tomatoes in an active compost pile. They came up volunteer, so I don't see why some other tomatoes can't grow in this. It's lasagna gardening. I've seen it work. I've watched David the Good grow things in a bed prepared like this. So I have some spare tomato plants who are real eager to get into the ground. Look at that, those roots coming out there. And I'm going to just plug some of these in. Just going to cut a hole in the cardboard and pull the stuff back, plop it in there, and call it done. Amana Orange, one of my favorite tomatoes of all time. But this Thorberg's Terracotta is going in too. It's interesting. Have to break off some of those roots. But I've cut a hole in the cardboard here, and I'm just going to put that right down in there. Shove it in, and I'm going to mound up some of this stuff right like so. So what I do is just punch a hole in the cardboard there, just enough to get down to the soil underneath and let this plant send its roots down into all that good soil that's under there. That ought to do. There we go. Take up some of that cardboard a little bit. Take my Amana Orange. We're just going to stick it right down in there. Mash it in real good. Tomatoes are very resilient. They're very tough. You don't have to worry about harming them by mashing them down like that. But yeah, Amana Orange. One of my favorite tomatoes of all time. Alright, I'm going to plan out the rest of this tomorrow because I'm soaking in sweat. I'm really hot, but you get the idea of how to put in a lasagna garden. And this garden will compost down, its volume will decrease, but the soil underneath will be improved, and that's what we're after. Not really after so much a raised bed as we are improving the soil here in the ground natively. There we go. All done. Anti-corky net put up. Phoebe's not going to like that, but Phoebe does not get a say in the matter. I have all this ground up leaf matter. These are deciduous leaves, not oak leaves like I've used on as mulch. This was going to be leaf mold, but I'm not patient enough. I've determined that I'm going to use this space differently, and I'm going to use all this stuff as organic material, as mulch, as compost amendments, and I just put a whole bunch of it over here as a deep, thick mulch. This will help also to draw up worms. It will help this decompose. This is going to be a really good bed. This is about, I don't know, 8 inches, maybe 10 inches thick. And yeah, so I've got 2 plants growing in there. I'll put some more back in that area later. Phoebe, what are you after? Huh? What do you find? Huh? Where's a critter? Did you find a critter? Where's a critter? So there's our lasagna garden. Real simple, real easy. You can do it too. It's a good way to go ahead and put in new gardens that don't require a lot of effort. So, hey, thanks for joining us on Black Gumbo Southern Gardening. I'm glad you've watched this video. Please like us on Facebook and Instagram. Subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate the community that's being built here, and thank you for all your comments. Hey, happy gardening to you. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.